So hi, Sally-Ann, good to see you.
Hi, it's good to see you again.
So what are we doing today?
Well,
Why are we here?
Why we're here? So we were doing our live art chats, which we were both really enjoying. And I can't really remember why they stopped. I think projects get busy, and then it's organising time and things. And it's something that we've both said outside of this, like we'd really love to continue them, and I think they're really valuable just in terms of conversations and things. So I think this was an idea. Let's try and reignite this in some way where we can go a bit deeper, and maybe we can do it in this format again when it's just like an open conversation. But definitely for me, I can talk more about my work and like of my work when I'm not actually working.
Me too.
Because you're so caught up in process that you can't, it's like a different headspace to be.
Well, it's a bit like trying to do this, isn't it? Hang on, I can't do it. Just prove the point. That's right. It's really difficult to like pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time. And I think it's a bit like that, isn't it? When you're painting, and it's not surprising, is it really? Because I think, I think particularly because of the way that you and I paint as well, which is to be kind of deeply in that intuitive, responsive, a kind of not in a very cognitive, thoughtful place, but much more in an emotional kind of responsive place.
Yes.
That actually moving in and out of that to both paint and demonstrate the work for people, but then to kind of pull out of that and answer questions while you might want to. It's actually really hard, isn't it, to kind of move in, move out, and speak and say anything that makes any sense actually to people.
Yeah, that's true. And also I think sometimes we don't, well, definitely for me, I don't always understand the work I'm doing at the time, because it's that kind of, you want to be in a flow, and it's not until maybe you've finished some work and then you can reflect on it, so your thoughts whilst you're making the work may be a little bit different to those once you finish the paintings, and maybe you've had a bit of distance from them, but you can kind of analyze, well, what actually happened there and how do I feel about that sort of thing. So I guess and that's really my area of like huge interest as well. I love that side of it, and going really deep on kind of like where they are now, where they're going next, what those threads might look like. So yes, I guess that's why we're coming together to do these again.
Well, that was the idea, wasn't it? I think we also thought that while it was lovely having people hop on, but actually not everybody could make it, and that made it a bit, sometimes we'd have a few people, sometimes I've got a lot of people, and it just felt like that perhaps wasn't such a great idea. So that maybe that by kind of pre-recording them actually and then popping them onto, I think I'm going to put mine onto YouTube, I think, and onto my website, that actually people could then watch them when they wanted to and not feel like they were perhaps missing out on something because they'd not been able to attend the live. So
absolutely.
So should we have a bit of a catch up with each other in terms of what both of us are up to, and then we'll perhaps talk about what we're doing in terms of the work at the moment.
Sure. Do you want to go first?
I can do. Like what's up for me at the moment? I think quite a few things actually. I've got some events coming up, so I'm kind of in the thick of preparation for that, and that's always quite interesting, I think. I've got an open studio at the end of this month, and then I'm in the process of applying for a position. There's a kind of art centre stroke local gallery in Buxton, and they have resident artists, and effectively what you get for that is that by kind of being part of the community there, you get permanent exhibition space and a place to kind of exhibit your work on an ongoing basis, and then kind of there's a small fee that you pay for that, but then you kind of go and help run the place. So I'm just putting an application in for that, and I'm hoping that it'll be accepted. So if that happens, I'll be really pleased, because it kind of will I think it'd be really good actually to get more closely connected to local artists. So I'm looking forward to that. And it also means that I'll be able to go down there, at least once a week, and people will know that that's where I'll be, and they can come and have a look at the work, So that feels exciting. So that's kind of, I suppose that's the two things I've got. I've got some courses and stuff like that are coming up, but nothing immediate with that. So they're all kind of slightly longer term projects. So that's kind of some of the things that were adjacent to the work. And then I think in terms of the work, I'm kind of right in the middle of a really big shift in it, and it's kind of exciting, challenging, confusing. It's a bit stop-start. I kind of make a bit of a breakthrough, you know, move forward, then stop and go, I have no idea where I want to go next. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, so how about you? What are you up to?
So similar with the gallery space, and like you're applying to. So I took on the space I sell in February this year. So I've been trying a few different things, just with regards to like the customers coming in, what I think's working, and you know, I think what I mean, I knew this anyway, but what's been really apparent is, even though there's now a place that I can call a base, you know, which is perfect, I can send people there, it's still a case of me like driving the traffic there. I don't think we can expect, just because we've got a window and a shop front, it's not kind of like everyone's just going to come in, and you know, so but it's really lovely to have something to talk about actually ongoing, sort of on social media, because you know that that's a mainstay now in you know, in your practice, in your business. So and it's nice to change things up. Like I've just taken some studies down there, smaller pieces, and just had a switch up of my wall, and that's I think what's been a real eye-opener for me is seeing how people interact with the work, who don't know my work, who don't follow me on Instagram, who, you know, so it's like first view, and that's interesting to observe.
That's almost like they're kind of discovering you for the first time. Yeah,
and it, what relationship have they then, you know, what do they get from the work? So that's been interesting. So I've got that ongoing. I do have a local art trail here that's coming up, not till September though, so I've got a little bit of time before then.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to hold some workshops online over the summer.
Okay, that's good.
I might do one at my studio, because I only had somebody here the other day on a one-to-one, and she was going, Sally, please do some workshops in the summer. But so it's like opening up my studio to do that. So yeah, I think a bit of both. What else have I got going on? I'm just coming to the end of my creative shift course. So we're on the last weeks. So that's always like a bit of a, you know, you've got to know people over the 8 weeks. So yeah, different plans for that, of how that might look in the future as well. So yeah,
that's been interesting for you, hasn't it, as well, doing that actually?
Super interesting, really interesting, because it's not on the practical side, it's not technique, you know, it's all discussion based. I mean, that was, I think that was one of the best things I did last year, was to launch that. It's just been amazing for me, and hopefully the people that have you know, traveled that bit of their journey with me. That
sounds really good. Sounds really good. Okay, so we were going to have a bit of a chat, weren't we, about sort of maybe looking at some of the work that we've been doing, getting in close, maybe talking about how we made it, what some of the thinking was behind it, where we're at with our current work. Do you want to go first, or shall I go first? Let's play this, because I
don't mind. I can share first.
Yeah, do you want to share first?
Yeah. Okay. So just to give you a bit of background, I've been working. You obviously know my work. It's and I think I go through stages of having it feeling quite intense, and then wanting it to be more minimal, and I sort of have this dance between, and I've tried to be in kind of an acceptance phase of allowing. If I just share my screen, it might make more sense as I speak. So I'm going to start with these. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I'll look at it's my albums, but yeah, I can see.
Oh, my screen sharing is paused. Hang on. What is
that? There we go.
Can you see?
Yes, okay, cool. Yeah, nice and clear.
That's never happened to me before. A new thing. Okay, so I wanted to be able to take my like larger paintings where they're heavily layered and quite intense, and I wanted to almost be able to have more minimal expressions or minimal moments, and be able to accept them, even though it feels a bit different from my other work.
Yeah.
So that's been a process of allowing and accepting at a certain point to be like, this is enough. And I think we often hear artists when we get to a point and we love, but we say, but is it enough? Because in our minds, especially for me and the people I've worked with, I think we have this conditioning or training to think that the more heavily layered and richly textured the surfaces are, the more value they hold.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to dispel that from my mind, because it's not a truth,
No, it's not. No, it's not a truth, is it? I mean, it might be a a preference.
Yes.
And it might be something that is kind of an authentic expression of somebody's voice, but it's not a truth.
No, and it's and for me especially, and the people I've worked with, it's like paring this back to a point where it comes down to our preferences again, doesn't it? I like all the intense layers of my work. I love all that, but there's something I love about a really simple drawing, really simple line work. And I'm trying to get to a point in my practice where I'm accepting of all of these things as having equal value.
Yeah.
They are, they're expressions of that moment. So
how can we see that can we see that in this piece, Sally? And how would you describe that happening in here?
Well, for me, it would be the bigger areas of the blank space. I mean, this is only a small painting. It's only 6 by 6, so it's tiny. It's only tiny. But it was, instead of having, like the temptation would be to have this line work kind of covering the piece, but actually it was built up in layers of collage. I don't know if you can see the sort of faint lines here and the crisscrosses. So it was building the surface texture up in that way. So that's almost where the intricacy and the richness lies. But then can I leave these big blank spaces? And that feels quite matte as well. You can't see, because the paint was used more thickly, you can't really see lots going on under the surface, only this minimal line of collage here. So
although I mean, you say the line work's not there, but I can still see lines. I mean, in that blue area top right, I'm assuming that those lines that I can see under the surface are collage.
Yes.
So as I read that, I mean, I'm still seeing lines.
Still seeing lines,
faint,
but in a more subtle way.
Yeah, definitely a more subtle way. Yeah.
So then it was like, can I get to this point? And this here just comes from my, the whole meditative thing that I love going through. But again, it's not, I know it's a little bit of contrast there, but it's not like highly contrasting. It's again more subtle. So it's like, can I get all the elements that I love in my practice, but in a more subtle way? And I'm still obviously loving this compartmentalizing kind of way of working, which hasn't left me and is current through my through my work. Let me just try and this way. So again here, and even more playful with my palette here, because another thing I'm thinking is, I love like bright pinks, but really is that like neon pink me? So I was thinking, how can I make my underlayers brighter, leaving some to come through, but also what does that neon pink do to the colors on top? Does it give them that pop? So you can see that there, and in contrast, this here is more of an earthy, I don't know, like a pale brown, and you can see that doesn't, it's contrasting to that, because it's not got that pop necessarily, but a more subtle transition. And then under here there was like line work with drawings, and I really I love seeing the brush strokes. So I'm quite happy to be I don't know, almost like naive, with the paint and the brushes. But I like this almost like you've plastered over something. I like leaving it very raw, and if almost as if it's blanked out something in your life. It's just like ish. So yes, that was again just things like that. How minimal can I get? And this pushed me probably as far as I've ever been pushed in terms of referencing a landscape, which I very rarely do, but also the minimalism, the subtlety. And it's I don't know if it comes across, it's highly textured in terms of collage and bits of different paper, and then really well, the line work you can see there is been blanked out, but
I really like this actually. I really like the you know, this kind of very soft palette, but and also, you know, like you say, it's really, you know, it's very minimal compared to some of the work that I've seen you do before, and it really works. I mean, for me it really works. I find myself wanted to stand back from it a bit actually, you know, so I can kind of get a full read of it. Yeah,
it was one of the first ones to sell in this collection as well, interestingly enough.
Yeah, well, I can see why. You know, it's very, it's saying a lot. It's saying a lot with not very much.
With not very much, yeah. And I think, I mean, I don't think I'm ready to. This was kind of an anomaly in the collection, and I was like, can I do that? But I thought, just do it. I don't think I'm quite ready for this yet.
I know what you mean. I do know what you mean with that.
I'm glad it's happened, because I sometimes, this is what I say in my creative shift course as well, I think sometimes we make work that's ahead of ourselves. Like we don't quite understand it, we don't really know what it's about yet, but I always say, you know, let it be, allow it if you can. If you've got the time and the materials, just let that happen and then put it aside, and I bet you come back around to it. And I think that's what's happened with here. I think in the future, this might, the whole more minimal style, but still rich in texture maybe, but more subtle in terms of line work and elements. Again, the same sort of feeling, lots of texture going on under the surface. I don't know what I used here to get this. I don't know if I used a moulding paste.
Okay.
I can't remember, but purposely left this, you know, the mark of the brush strokes. What I did enjoy in all of these is the use of glazing, and I kept my glazing in the compartments as well on many of them. So this was I like the almost the printed feel of this, and it's obviously not print, it's paint. But yeah, I mean, this was probably all line work under that as an underpainting, but I've really
they worked over the top and kind of
for me blanked quite a lot of it out. So how much can I work with this space but have minimal details?
I really like how you can see the thickness of the paint with that sort of lumpy bit, really, I suppose you could almost describe it, in that top right quadrant.
This bit,
I really love that actually.
I
really like that.
I think there, can you see those faint lines? So that would have been started with collage as well.
That's interesting.
This one is one of my favorites. Again, I'm surprised at my simplicity on these. Do you have a sense of what this is about for you, Sally Ann? Like why this is emerging now in your life? You know, and is it speaking, do you think, to something more significant? Because I often think, you know, our work can often reflect our own internal kind of processing in some respects. I mean, if it feels okay to share that. I mean, the compartmentalizing for me is quite an obvious one, because it's the way my mind works in terms of giving everything a space, because I don't work well if I'm stressed, so I try not to take too much on. I manage my time as best I can. I only work on, you know, a minimum amount of projects. And just the way I live my life, it's very like compartmentalized in my mind. So I'm comfortable. When I work in this way, there's a certain like satisfaction or a certain safety in my mind of working in this way. Like I feel held because it's got a strong structure, if that makes sense. So it's like I enjoy that sense of strength, but I don't want them to be like, with my personality, I don't want it to be hard edges in that. There's a softness, but it's grounding, if that makes sense. So it does. Or the subtleties, like these are very subtle colours and colour shifts, and there's like lots going on under the surface, and I think that describes, it's kind of my reflection in the world. You know, I don't have to, there's lots going on, but I don't have to be very loud about it. And you know, my colours are always quite soft and things. And I just like that. I like that idea about lots going on under the surface in people and in artwork. You know, I find there's a curiosity in that, there's a mystery in that.
Yeah, interesting. I'm really enjoying as well these little tiny white splashes of paint on this kind of bottom area. That looks lovely, actually. Particularly kind of contrasted with that smooth, well, not so smooth, but that white paint mark.
Yes.
It's very nice. Yeah, it's really lovely.
And I think there's the glimpse of the neon pink under there.
Yeah, and you've used glaze in this top area, haven't you? I think kind of the paint's quite watered down to kind of get that opaque effect.
Yeah, and then I actually can't remember this. This seems quite a bold shape for me in here, but I obviously allowed it at the time and liked it.
Yeah.
And then I just really like these colours together. I'm loving this really soft, fleshy pink at the moment, and obviously it sits well with like an olive green. I think that must be collage, because I can see it's ripped or something, worn away. So yeah, again, an exercise really in simplicity, richness, but simplicity, I guess. And I do really like that structure. I must. I haven't really got the language yet around it, because when I do, I will describe all this on my website and in my copy. So I think I'm just working through like what I've just said to you with like there's the grounding sense of having a strong structure, but then the softer compartments that sit within that, you know. So I'm working through it. And then I mean, similar story.
I really like that one.
Yeah,
I've not seen this one before, actually.
I mean, not this one.
I really like the overlay of the glazes over the what you can see, kind of the hints of what's underneath.
Yeah, I love the glazes on these, Lynn.
Yeah.
Again, obviously starting with collage base here. I don't know what all these different lines are, but that was a collage piece from a long time ago, and I think in there there's some graph paper.
Okay.
I can see.
Oh yes, I can just see
it. So again, that it's like a structured feel, but very soft. And then these shapes that are obviously really familiar.
It's that kind of contrast between structure and rawness and softness and gentleness. And I'm just about to go and sneeze, I think. So
sneeze away.
I'll just do that off camera a minute.
Okay. Yes, and watery layers again. I think what happened, I had those strong pinks underneath, and then obviously felt they were a bit too strong. So but I think this will be something that you'll see in my work in the future, because I love these watery layers. And finally, this is in progress. This is, I think it's on the back wall there at the moment. So it must be, it's 90 by 90, I think.
Okay, so quite a big one.
Yeah, so I'm bringing together everything I've just showed you and talked through, this like sense of structure, but in a really soft, almost playful kind of way. I mean, this feels a bit, it's not quite there, but I'm enjoying the softer palette. I'm enjoying, you probably can't see it so much on here, there's lots of these like under layers of like, again, quite structured shapes, but in a soft way. And then just to bring the elements of contrast up, I thought these were quite playful up here. And I don't really know what, it feels just quite beachy to me, and these feel almost bird-like or song-like, I don't know. And again, I don't really have references in my work, but it's an overall feel. So that's,
I can kind of see those sort of influences really, given that where you are, in terms of some of the structure, the line work, the way in which the colours are put together, and some of that to me speaks of a kind of coastal environment, really, I think. And while it's not, it's clearly not directly referenced, but it's kind of softly there, I think.
Yes, It just
Yeah,
it just
that's
feels
great.
that way. There's this last one I'm working on, and this is really current. My friend who's an artist a few studios away said, I've got some spray paint, and I was like, oh, I want to try spray paint. So I've been trying. I've got loads of different colours,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
I was enjoying the difference in
yeah,
just how it's applied, because it's your whole body with like the movement of it.
yeah,
So that forces you to be like in the painting more.
yeah.
But also I like the smoothness. So it's trying to find a way to like mix it in with my
Yeah.
way of painting. So that's a bit of a departure from my softer colours, because I chose that bright red.
Yeah.
Whether, I mean, it's quite soft, it's not like bright, but whether how that will fit together, I don't know. But I have a feeling it will, because I like the different media of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
interesting when we start to kind of do those kind of experiments and see what happens.
yeah, well, I think every so often I like to add something new. And I don't often do it, but it'll be a new material, whether it's a new like the moulding paste, or I'm going to try some experiments in oil and cold wax, because I just can't resist. I've seen a lot of, in my groups actually, a lot of the people have been trying it, and it's their work just looks amazing, so I can't resist trying it.
Be interested how you get on with it. I'll be interested in hearing about it. I think the thing that I'm thinking about is maybe jelly plates. Bringing in some kind of printed collage stuff and seeing what that brings, because that feels like it could be quite interesting. But I haven't yet, taken action on that, but I guess I will do probably at some point soon.
And everybody's experiments I see with the jelly plate look just so much fun,
and
a really good way, good way to build up collage materials. So I just haven't, I think sometimes I'm resistant to try these things, because I know as soon as I'm in, that's it. I just, and so I'm always like, am I okay with everything else before I start?
Excuse me. I'm just going to mute myself a minute. I just want to deal with my hay fever.
Okay. You okay?
Yeah, that's better.
I was going to say, the last thing I should say is I've been trying to pick up a daily drawing practice.
Okay.
So I've been drawing the plants in my studio, just trying different media, and I'm thinking how these will eventually come into my work. So I've not joined the two yet, but I'm just making lots of really lovely so again, I like the movement. They're not direct translations, but the essence of like movement and nature. So that's me.
Exciting. Well, where am I at? Where am I at? I think, like I was saying to you at the beginning, I feel like I'm in the middle of a really big shift actually with my work. So I have been, I think a lot of my work over the last 2 or 3 years has been about kind of very deeply textured, rich paint. And often with quite a lot of line work and quite dramatic actually. And I think I'll just show a painting that I think is probably a pretty good example of that. That's this one. This is a metre by metre square canvas. It's called Hot Air Rises, this painting. And I think this was about a couple of things really. One which was about really wanting to simplify down the composition, and to particularly to work in a fairly substantial way, but keeping the kind of the composition and the shapes kind of quite spare, actually quite almost elegant. I think I was looking for kind of a real simplicity, because I think often sometimes when you go bigger, that you can end up with more in it than you would in a small painting. Definitely. And I wanted to think about this in, like, I might do something that was, I don't know, 8 by 8 or something like that, 8 by 8 inches, and see what that would feel like if it was translated up to something that's I'm switching between inches and centimeters, but something that's like a metre by a metre, which is like 39 inches, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also, you know, kind of really richly textured actually. And if I'll just get in close so you can see a bit more of that. So if you can see, you know, here where I tend to layer paint by using a kind of almost like a dry brush technique, I suppose you'd call it.
Nice.
You know, where there's one kind of colour of paint laid down first, and then I might add a tiny amount of another colour into that. So for example, with this blue, you know, I might add a bit of more white into that and then brush across it again, and then I might switch brushes and go to this kind of neutrally beige colour and then add some of that. And then you can probably see it here, the colour variation again between this colour here,
yes,
little hand on the screen, which is slightly darker than this colour here.
Yeah.
You know, where I'll have added again a slightly different colour of paint into the mix that I'm using, so that you're getting really subtle variations. So you can't really see that particularly, I don't think, not that much from a distance, but you can really see it when you're getting close.
Yes, yeah, you can see. I mean, I can definitely see a difference.
Yeah, you
for
can
sure.
see some shifts, can't you? I think in the colours. Yeah, you know, and then I've been very interested in you know, this kind of very loose, open use of line actually, and often that's been done with mainly with oil pastel, actually, a lot with oil pastel, although some pencil crayon and graphite actually here. But a lot of it's oil pastel, where I'll kind of lay it onto the surface, then paint over the top and scratch back into the paint so the oil pastel gets revealed.
Okay.
And if you can see over onto this side, yeah, here in the dark, you know, so there's things going on in the dark of the painting as well as there are in the kind of orange, where, you know, the shapes and forms underneath really adding interest. Yeah, so this painting, you know, these paintings were all about that really. You know, it was a really key part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see even from through a screen, it's not a flat color, definitely not. You know, even in that side panel, there's I think, I don't know if you've used fabric or the collage there, and that's got a
it's paint actually. That will just be part of the paint. Yeah, well, I've layered the paint on. The same up here, you know, those marks there are lines scratched into the paint, so probably using something like a fork or a stick or something to actually create the. So I've done a lot of that kind of work, I think.
Yes.
And then what I've found is I've started to want to work more and more simply. I think, like you've been saying, actually, it's interesting here that you were talking about simplicity. And I don't know if it was so much simplicity as wanting to pay more attention to the early kind of experience of painting. You know, the first things that you start to lay down before you put anything else over the top. So, for example, this painting has got, you know, layer upon layer upon layer of paint on it. Actually, it's got an awful lot of paint on it, which you can see when you see it, you know, in real life, that it's very thickly, densely textured. But I started to get interested in. I think it was probably because I was doing quite a lot of work with collage. And, you know, sometimes you find bits of paper, don't you, where you've lifted paint or, you know, they've got random marks on them and they're really beautiful. You know, they're kind of just little bits that are lovely. And I started to want to find a way to use those, but make more of them. So they didn't just disappear into, you know, the depths of the thickly textured painting, but they almost became the thing itself.
Yeah. I
think. Yeah. So, I mean, from that, I've started to kind of do more work like that, and this is one of those sorts of paintings where I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, there was a piece of paper here, it's collage, and this piece here that were the kind of the inspiration for wanting to do more of that, I think. So this is on one panel, and it's layered. Basically, it's layered collage. It's there's no wood on the surface at all. The whole of the surface is all covered with paper. And I mean, how it actually happened, I think, was that I started by covering the whole of the surface of the panel with paper. So the whole surface was covered with paper. And then I kind of worked into it. And as I did, I think I lost some of the first moments, that it started to get there was too much paint on it for what I was wanting to achieve. So then I realized that actually what I could do was layer some more collage on top of that, just to kind of, you know, that it got fresh paper in it again, it was reactivate it. And the pieces that I laid down were ones that I really liked. So I found that I've kind of got this process, and I can't even really speak to it that clearly yet, because I'm still in the process of working it out. Yeah. But what I found was that as I was layering the paper, that I was kind of sculpting this, almost like sculpting the surface of the painting as I was doing that. but that I was also able to leave, you know, a lot more white space. Like here, that's just completely white paper, it's bare. You know, there's nothing on that. And I started to really like that and want to do more of it. Yeah, so this is part of the Naissance series, which I think, when did I launch? I think that was launched, where are we now? We're in May, aren't we? So that was, yeah, I had that at the other art fair in March. So I had about 6 or 7 paintings in this series ready for them. And this is one of the earlier ones, I think. So,
what
you know,
size is that?
Pardon?
What size is it?
It's 16 by 16.
Oh, okay. So fairly, yeah. Really good.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, what's happening with this is I'm using a lot of water-based media. So I'll be doing things like, you know, creating that, having that clean white paper, and then I'll be doing a lot of line work on it, and then spraying, you know, using water-based crayons, wax pastel crayons, the water-based ones, spraying that with water, and it'll kind of create lots of really swooshy, you know, wet, sort of lovely, runny kind of marks. And then I'll you know, see what I've got and then work back into that with some paint. But even then, actually, I'm using the paint in a way that I've not used it before. I mean, I'm using a lot more water in it. So it's almost like it's a very, very thin glaze. It's like I'm painting with thin, watery glazes rather than painting with thick paint, which feels like it's really different, actually. And I'll show on, move on to the next one.
It's so nice,
this one, you can really see it in this one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing about how where you have used it, like where that brown is at the sort of center top, how opaque that feels, and actually it's not that opaque because the yellow comes through it, but how washy the other parts around it is. It's funny how each one of them makes the other one look more of itself, you know, like the brown looks more opaque because of the wash. The wash, and because of how thick, you know, the density of the brown, it makes the washes look more delicate. So it's almost like they need one another to be able to be themselves.
yeah, so it feels like this is probably the furthest I've pushed this so far, you know, because there's a lot of, I mean, this, you know, here, this area here is, you know, white paper with a, you know, very delicate wash of acrylic paint, you know, and that's it, you know, there's nothing more on that, you know, and I would never have done that before. You know, and after, you know, and like you, I find it really kind of like, I found myself asking, you know, can I do that?
I was going to say,
how much finished?
Yeah,
you know, like
so
I don't know if I'm ready to show this like this.
And did that feel like a risk for you then?
Massively. Yeah, I kind of, you know, have to really hold myself back, because you can see it on this previous one. You know, I ended up putting quite a lot more paint on there, so I could have left it with a lot less. There was a stage where I quite liked it with a lot less, and I just couldn't, you know, it's like I was not ready, like you were saying. I wasn't ready to just leave it like that, even though part of me quite liked it. Whereas this one, I think, you know, it is pushing that much further in terms of leaving a lot more white paper. You know, this piece here through the center is, you know, is a piece of collage. And you know, it was mainly through lifted paint, and I've done a little bit to it, but you know, mostly it's just kind of pretty much what it was. You know, laid on the top of this other painting, you know, with where there was some sort of work going on underneath. So it's felt it has felt quite risky, actually, to kind of go to this level of I don't know,
I want to say
that's where words fail, you know.
Yeah, I want to say minimalism, but it's obviously we're way far from minimalism. But in terms of your process, it's more minimal. It's the most minimal that you've experienced, probably.
Yeah, it's certainly in terms of like kind of the amount of paint that I'm putting onto it. Definitely. I think also practicing more restraint with my lines as well, you know, because I think I can go a bit over the top with that, and I'm you know, really wanting to pull back from that, actually, and do a lot less.
And you know, I think these are such interesting conversations about this whole like we started off, layering against minimal marks and things, and where you draw the line at that, and I think that's forever changing, you know, because it's like this was one painting out of the ones you did, and on this one you felt like you'd pushed it a little bit more, you know, and then no doubt when, you know, hopefully you'll go on to tell me where you're heading, and it might be a little bit more and a little bit more. None of these things happen overnight.
No, not at all.
Because it takes our minds to catch up with what we're doing.
Yeah, it does, definitely. It really does. It really does. I'll just stop sharing actually, so we can just back to just you and me. Yeah, I think it really does. I mean, I think in terms of like where am I heading with this, you know, I think, like I said, I'm in this place where I've sort of stalled a little bit with it, because I've got, I think 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I've got 6 paintings now that are kind of that have moved on from the sort of orange and dark ones, where I've pushed it a bit further. I've gone into slightly lighter colours. So, for example, this is another one. I haven't got a photograph of this one actually, but this is another one that's just you know, and you can see, you know, I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of really letting the texture of the paper really, and how the this sort of very watery effect speak for itself. You know, I look at it and I still find myself thinking, can I put that up there? It's really
because it's, and that's, you know, that's totally our mindset of how we're viewing. It's like what you clarify for yourself as a finished painting, it has to be X, 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 and it's those X's that need changing. It's like, so our criteria for our work is changing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's changed a lot, I think, from you look, you know, you think about that first painting I showed, you know, Hot Air Rises, and compare it to that. I mean, it's still my work and you can still see me in it, but there's also some, you know, there's some quite significant changes, I think, and differences, you know, and it feels quite interesting. And at the moment I'm trying to, well, I'm in the process of getting 2 much bigger ones finished, which are, I think they're something like, how big are they? They're probably, I'm trying to think, they're probably 36 by, I don't know, 39, something like that. So they're both quite big. And I'm just stuck with them, you know, because they're at this point where I just don't quite know how to take them forward or to resolve them, you know.
And do you feel that,
I think because they're so much bigger.
Yes. And do you feel that you are split between what we've been talking about, because you've got your way of working that you have been working, then you've moved into this slightly newer phase with lighter palettes? Do you feel like you're in between those, and that's why the confusion comes, because you don't quite know?
Yeah, I think it's, what is it that I'm stuck with? I think it's because I think there's probably a lot going on actually, Sally Ann. I think it's technically difficult. Yeah. Because they are much bigger. So I'm working, you know, with a much bigger surface area and trying to get the kind of lightness of touch with the paint, and the, you know, because it's all wet, really watery, and it not and just to make that work, I think, you know, is actually quite difficult.
Yeah, on that
scale. Yeah, on that scale. Yeah, so there's that bit of it, I think, that actually technically it's not that easy. But then I think also, I think I'm experiencing that thing that you often do when you go big, when you've been doing something smaller, which is actually, you know, the shapes and the forms haven't scaled up proportionately to the size of the painting. So there's some bits on it that are just too, you know, the forms are just too small. So compared to the whole size of the thing, which, you know, like that one that's behind me, for example. Yeah. You know, like this, which is a 36 by 36. So there's a huge patch, isn't there? Yeah. You know, that olive green. You know, and it's, you know, it's taking up what? Yeah. At least a quarter, probably nearly to a third of the painting. Yes. Yeah, it's a really big patch of paint. And I think, you know, it's kind of also managing that process as well, of like everything needing to scale up when I've been working on things that are, you know, only like this, which is a 12 by 12. Yeah. You know, so if I want that kind of effect on a painting that size, and that's an awful piece of awfully large area to kind of achieve that with. Yeah. You know, so it's that kind of thing.
I totally get you. And isn't it funny, because we know this, but when you come to do it, it's, you know, I've done the same here. Yeah, there's so much going on, and it's like, what I want is simple. So I think that's why I got to the point where I'm simplifying on a smaller level first, and then trying to get my mindset into thinking, okay, this is how we can work, and then scale that simplification up. But as soon as I get to a new piece, it's like, woo, big canvas, let's go, you know. So I totally hear you.
yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm gonna leave the two that I've got a bit stalled. I'm just gonna leave them on the wall for now,
Yeah.
and I'll come back to them, I think, in a bit. I've got an open studio, because that's the other thing, I think, is that that's distracting me. You know, it's almost like I feel like I think this is quite useful for people who are listening and wondering about, you know, process kind of questions, mindset questions, is I feel like I need to leave myself a really good space around these pieces so that I can have the time just to kind of, you know, let what needs to happen. I need to experience the pieces, I think, and work out what needs to happen next. But that's not a thinking process. It's almost like that needs to happen without me thinking, actually.
Yeah.
And if I've got a lot of other stuff going on, if my mind's full of other things, there's no space to allow that to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so it's almost like I perhaps need to go away for 2 or 3 days and then come back and look at them, and I'll probably go, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
You know,
Just a bit of breathing time.
Yeah, it needs some breathing.
Yeah.
They need to breathe and I need to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was the shift in your palette? Was that just you just fancied lighter, or the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was probably seasonal. I think, you know, those paintings that I was doing, well, a lot of them were started the back end of last year, so in the autumn when it was dark, and you know, dark kind of rich colours, and the oranges and everything felt like they felt like, well, what I wanted to paint with. But then as it's been starting to get lighter, you know, I don't find myself reaching for that. I want to reach for the cerulean and the olive green, and you know, and the peachy colours and all of that. I still want that rich contrast, I think, between those and the darks. You know, I'm really finding that I enjoy using very, very, you know, like black or black mixed with burnt umber or something like that to give that drama, I think. And also that kind of slightly gritty, grungy kind of feel to things that make them feel aged, I think. So I definitely want that alongside, but I want it alongside some lighter stuff as well. So yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting. It feels kind of, feels good.
It is. And I think it helps to talk through like this, because it's you know, some things will spark in a conversation. It just helps to provide a little bit more clarity about a point of it or something. I think when we're just chatting in general, you know, when your guards are down or something, it's the same in life. When you're just chatting, things come to the surface, like, oh right, okay, so we know it's all in there, we know what we want to come out, but sometimes it just doesn't come to the surface. I think that's very true, actually. I think that's very true. Okay, any more to say, do you think, or do you think we're about ready to wrap it up? No, I think I'm done. That was great. Really insightful as well. So maybe we can, I don't know, we'll do perhaps revisit this maybe in a few weeks' time, see where we're at, actually. See where we're at. Maybe in about, I don't know, a couple of months, something like that, and see how the work's moved on and if there's any shifts. Okay, cool. So I hope you enjoy this, people. Okay, and we'll see you again soon. Bye. Bye.